Hi there. I would like to take a moment to introduce you to a little friend of mine that just arrived today. This is the Archer Plus-O-Matic. Now, I have a certain fascination for mechanical devices. I collect and repair typewriters. I have a set of mechanical calculators. I particularly like slide rules because it's simple but powerful, but also very elegant. I like elegant, simple, powerful devices. And the slide rule has that in spades. It's a pointer, a moving stick of wood, and two stationary pieces of wood. And with that, you can do an enormous amount of work very quickly. Not necessarily very precisely, and there's a limit to the accuracy, but still very powerful. This is a simple adding machine, kind of halfway between the addiator and the adometer, if you're familiar with these devices. In that this is a wheel-driven device. However, you'll note that this is marked the Plus-O-Matic, not the Minus-O-Matic. It cannot do subtraction. It is not designed for it, unless you know nines complement math. So all this will do is go in the one direction. Now, I find this device particularly interesting because of just how simple it is and yet how it operates. So let's just do a simple calculation. Now, before I do that, I should mention that it was apparently designed to be used with some sort of a stylus, which may have been located in the hole back here. Not quite sure what that was for. There's not a lot of information on the web about this particular device. But I'm going to use this piece of pegwood that I have carved one end into a flat, the other end into a round. I use this for cleaning and probing. But you have to be careful with this. You can't dig like this or you'll go beyond what you want. So if I try to do 2, I'm going to come closer to 3 because I'll be going down below the case. So you have to be perpendicular. So if I want to select 5, I do that and I leave my stick parallel to the table so that it impacts the stop correctly. This here is the reset. Just press it and everything goes back where it's supposed to. And that's one of the interesting things about this device, the automatic reset versus the lever reset, the swipe of the odometer or the pull of the addiator. So let's just do a quick simple calculation. 111 plus 255. And as you see, I have 366. Now, case isn't exactly lined up with the wheels. I'm not quite sure why that is, but it's what you have to deal with these types of devices. But we get the right number, 366. Quick reset and it all goes back to 0. Now, the interesting thing about this device is that it has an automatic rollover. So if I add 9 here, and then I add 2, I see 11, and it is very snappy advance on the other wheel. So let's do the nice fun thing real quick. Pull everything down to 9. And watch what happens when I add one more. A nice sequential rollover. So there's a carry that cascades from one side to the other, and that's typical of these sorts of devices. It doesn't all go at once. But if I put random numbers in here and I hit the clear, they do all go at once. The relative distance according to what they are. So let's take a look inside here and just show you how simple yet interesting this design is. And I will note, so this is just an aluminum case. And I will note that these are the screws I took out of it. Now, this is a magnetic parts tray. But you'll notice that these screws move around easily. I'm not quite sure what they are, but they're obviously not steel. So I'm guessing they're nickel, because they don't quite look aluminum, and they seem a little bit harder, a little bit denser than aluminum. But that also is kind of interesting from a technical standpoint of why they went with nickel instead of basic steel. But I guess they're a little bit cheaper, especially in that size. All right, so let's take a look at this device. So we have our 4 wheels here. And obviously this is set up for convenience with currency. So you have your zeros, pennies, dimes, dollars, tens, hundreds, and thousands and 10,000s. Although why you would ever want to do that, I don't know. But let's say just simple 2 decimal places or 2 numbers with 5 decimal places. Very simple division, the red making it very easy to tell what's what. So, first thing I want to note here is that each of these wheels is very large. And if you note, there is a little mark on this wheel here. It actually exists on all of them, but these 2 are not lined up to show that. And there are the scale is printed 4 times on this wheel. It doesn't need to be so, but I think perhaps they were thinking that the scale of this, the physical size, makes it a little bit easier to see and keep in position on the desk. And the way that they were planning on manipulating it with a stylus or a pencil, you can use a pencil, but it will tend to leave these sorts of marks. I don't know if that was intended. I would rather think you'd want to keep that a little bit cleaner, but you can tell that it's had pencil all over it. Now, these here, I did spend a little bit of time cleaning with an alcohol and Q-tip, but this is paper, so you have to be careful you don't get crud on it. So you can clean this, but you have to be very careful to make sure that you don't get the liquid over here and stain your labels. I don't see any more of these for sale though, so this is maybe the only one that's been up for a while. In any event, I want to talk about how this operates. So the first thing I want to point out is you see here that there is this little helix kind of shape, snail sort of shape, as you would call it, a snail cam, which is close to the rim here and closer to the center here. As the wheel advances, there is this pawl here, which is kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can bring this up. Has a little bit of an extension. Yeah, so there's a little plate on the side of it here that has a little extension, has kind of a finger pointing in towards this wheel to ride on that cam. And when it gets to the point where it drops off, this will then be released. This will fall off here, which will allow the finger to go forward under spring tension and accomplish the carry. So that's how that works. Now you'll note that there is a detent back here, which is also spring-loaded, which holds the wheel in place. So the clearing mechanism is this bracket here, and you'll note that there is an extension down below the detent, and it looks like there's a single detent for each column. They're not all linked together and then just simply allowed to spring in and out. So this, as I move this lever backwards, will push this bracket forward up against that extension plate and pull the detent out of the wheels and allow them to slide back to their appropriate position. And they will go until the extension hits the back of this cam section. Now, the spring bar here has a spring on each end for the reset lever. Then it has two others. This one is associated with a detent to pull it back into place after a clearing. And this spring here is associated with the carry pawl. So you'll notice that this pawl is attached to this bracket, not that bracket. So each one is attached to the column previous to it, and it has to be for the carry to work. Otherwise, there will be issues. Now, it seems like I may have to work on this a little bit, because especially if I have it up, it is a little bit too close to the little brass bar here, the stiffener. It doesn't quite clear it. And if you look at it, it looks like someone may have filed on that a bit before. May have been done at the factory, may not have, hard to tell. And when I got this, this was dislodged from the hole, the support hole here, and pushed back. And this spring, you'll see the spring bar, you'll see two studs here. It had popped off of that and moved forward so that everything was just flopping around. It wasn't under spring tension. The interesting thing about this bar is that it is not stuck to the case. It sits freely, just held by these two studs. Not quite sure why that is versus being stuck in here, but I guess it allows for a full loop connection, even though that's not really what I see here. I see a standard sort of hook connection. Yeah, there's a full loop, but it looks like it's been bent over. So that allows a more secure grip for the springs to the bar. I find that kind of an interesting choice as well. So let's go ahead and set this up for the carry. If I can do it without overstopping. Whoops. The whole point here so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this twice. Once at full speed, and then I'm going to insert a high-speed image, so that a high-speed recording, so that you can see all of this go. So I just need to advance one more counter and everything will roll over. You can see all of the pawls fall in place. So let me go ahead and make that high-speed recording, and we can wrap this up. So all I have to do after that is put this cover back on, 2 screws in the front, 2 screws in the back. This case is a little bit worse for wear, but it's in acceptable condition. Not exactly sure when this device was made. I'll look that up and I'll put it on the video for you. So let me go ahead and set up the high speed, and you can see exactly how this is supposed to look. What can I say? Slow motion pictures are fun. So, put the case back on this. It's a nice, simple little device, perfect for just random addition when you don't really want to write anything down or don't need to, or you're trying to teach addition to a student in a classroom or a kid at home. Archer's Plus-O-Matic. A nice little handy device and a fun addition to calculator collection.